Did the Cleveland Indians cheat when they signed Bob Feller? Now, I'm sure that most of you know Bob Feller's story. His dad built him his own ballpark when he was in high school. In fact, his dad started his own team for his son. It was a real-life field of dreams. Back in 1935, it didn't take long for word about the 15-year-old Iowa farm kid with the blazing fastball to travel around. Feller writes in his autobiography about playing for a host of teams in quick succession. Oakview, which was his dad's team, Valley Junction, then the Farmers Union team in Des Moines. And then along came a man named Cy Slapnicka. Now, Slapnicka himself is a really interesting case. He was a former Major League player, but he's the sort of player we normally would feature on this channel. He pitched 3 games for the 1911 Chicago Cubs, losing 2 of them, and finishing 1 of his 2 starts. He then showed up again in the Major League level with the Pirates in 1918, where he had 6 starts and 4 complete games, posting a 1-4 record. His overall ERA plus for his career was 71, not exactly the best rating in the world. Slapnicka, however, is generally known not for his pitching in either the major leagues or the minor leagues, but rather for his ability to find star talent, especially in Iowa. Slapnicka was a scout for the Cleveland Indians and signed Feller as soon as he could convince him. Feller says that he got a $1 contract along with an autographed baseball. As Feller continued to pitch in local games and continued to strike everybody out, scouts started to swarm over him. It didn't matter, however. The Indians assigned him to play with the Fargo-Moorhead Twins in the Northern League, then part of Class D. And that's actually where this story really starts. Minor League Baseball has always been treated as a sort of vassal state by the Major League teams. In fact, I'll go one step further. I'll call them what they are. Minor League teams are colonies of the Major League franchise empires. Think about it. Minor League teams in general are not profitable. They don't attract enough of a local following to survive on gate receipts alone. They attract little local press, if any. The reason why is because they are puppets. They're vassals for the great Major League empire. The idea is that minor league players will hone their talents in the sticks. The good ones will move up the ladder of clubs quickly, maybe in 2 years, maybe less, and the poor ones will get stuck until they make a good case for themselves. Now, this concept seems natural to all baseball fans. This is the reality that I grew up with. This is also the reality that you grew up with. In fact, unless you're over 110 years old, you likely don't remember a time when most minor league teams were independent. That is, a time in which the minor leagues survived chiefly on player sales, similar to how lower league football clubs in England survive. When Feller was 15 years old, baseball was in a transition period. Some teams had farm systems of varying levels of legality. Other teams had close relationships with certain minor league owners, a type of puppet state. And there were still independent teams, teams that function much like city-states do if you play Civilization 6. Now, there were rules back in those days. Major league teams were not allowed to simply waltz in and find kids off the sandlots. Well, in theory, that is. The idea was that minor league teams could canvass their own areas and sign their own local kids, eventually selling them on to major league clubs for money that would keep the local franchises alive. Now, Feller was clearly scouted and signed directly by a major league team, which was against the rules. However, Slapnicka arranged things so that it seemed that Feller was signing directly with the Fargo-Moorhead team, even though he was from Iowa. According to the baseball legal patois of the time, major league teams could recommend that minor league teams they had a relationship with sign certain key youngsters. But that certainly wasn't the case here. Now, of course, when somebody breaks the rules so flagrantly, the vultures start flying in. The owner of the Des Moines team, a team that had never actually looked at Feller, complained to Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis that Feller had been purchased inappropriately and that the Indians had infringed on Des Moines' territorial rights. Now, this broke in the 1936 to 1937 offseason. Feller had already pitched in Major League Baseball by that time. He never pitched a single game in the minor leagues. His amateur playing, all while under contract with Cleveland, was so good that the Indians skipped the entire minor league ladder and stuck him up with the big club in July 1936. The idea was that Feller could have become a free agent at that time had Landis ruled that he was improperly signed. There were big money teams willing to offer him as much as $200,000 as a signing bonus should he become a free agent. Now, I should emphasize something here. The truth is that Feller was improperly signed. Nobody disputes that. Feller himself writes all about how nice Slepnicka was to him when he visited the Feller family farm and ballpark. Feller also never pitched a single game in the minor leagues. To settle this problem, Landis did the same thing he always did. He came up with that great diplomatic solution, the one that makes everybody upset. Des Moines got $7,500 from Cleveland for the infringement of its territorial rights, even though Des Moines did nothing. And Cleveland got to keep Feller for the amazing price of $1 and an autographed baseball. But the thing is that that's not really the story, and that's not the important part here. That's also not the reason why I made this video. You see, what this story is really about is the history of the colonization of the minor leagues. And as much as I dislike Kennesaw Mountain Landis, especially for his racism, that colonization is something that Landis fought against. We've got more videos to come on this subject, so you want to stick around and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to go deep into the real history of the minor leagues and talk about the stuff that the press and the historians usually don't want you to think too much about. Bye.